So let us now turn to Confucius's definition of rituals, as we will see, very counterintuitive vision. And to do so, let me begin with a rare moment in our lives where we tend to do what Confucius is talking about at an extremely mundane level, and then use that to draw out his philosophy. So let me begin with a rare example where Confucius would say we're doing something good. I'm sitting at a dinner table with my nephew. I won't give you his real name. Let's call him Sammy. So little Sammy is sitting across from me at the dinner table, and Sammy does what little children will often do. He looks at me and says, "Give me the salt, Michael." Now, we would all do some equivalent of what I'm about to mention. I, of course, would then look at Sammy and say, "Yes, Sammy, but what do you say?" And he kind of rolls his eyes because he's had to go through this so many times. And he goes, "Just give me the salt, Michael." And I say, "Yes, Sammy, but what do you say?" And I keep doing it until poor Sammy finally has to say, "Please give me the salt, Michael." Now, he's using a tone of voice, a roll of eyes to make it clear he thinks this is ridiculous. I do it anyway. And then what do? I give him the salt and I say, "Now what do you say?" And we go through the same rigmarole until poor Sammy finally has to say, "Thank you for giving me the salt, Michael." And then I say, "You're welcome." Now, Confucius would actually agree with what we're doing. And let's, now using Confucius's way of speaking, analyze what has just happened. What has happened from a Confucian point of view is I have created a ritual space in which I am helping to break Sammy from his habitual ways of acting in the world, and I am helping him train himself to become a better person. In this ritual space that I have de facto created, it is as if Sammy and I are equal people, and Sammy is asking something of his equal. Now, I say as if because, no, that's not at all true. And he knows it's not true, and I know it's not true. Sammy has no choice but to play the please and thank you game. He knows perfectly well I am hierarchically in a superior position. I'm not his parents, but I'm his uncle. It's certainly sufficient enough. He has no choice but to play it if he wants to get the salt. I could even, if I were a mean uncle, send him to his room without his dinner if I wanted to be an evil, punishing uncle. And he knows I could conceivably do that. Well, he knows I wouldn't do that, but he knows I could conceivably do something like that. We're not equal. But in this ritual space, we are. And I am training him how to ask something of another human being, an equal human being, and how to express gratitude when something is given to him. Note also that if Sammy learns the ritual so well that he simply internalizes saying please and thank you all the time, he has not learned the ritual. Note, as he grows up, if he continues to all the time say, please and thank you, every time he wants something and every time he expresses gratitude, he will be failing, right? He will not be sensing the situation. He will not be sensing how to ask something of another human being, how to express gratitude, because usually please and thank you are going to be either way too formal for most situations, way too less of a way of phrasing true gratitude, because oftentimes friends will do things much more dramatic than a mere thank you could conceivably express. So if Sammy learns the ritual, and if I'm a good uncle, will continue to work with him as he grows up, he goes from that initial being sort of forced in this ritual situation to say please and thank you, rolling his eyes. Gradually he learns to do it without rolling his eyes. Gradually he learns to do it smiling, please, thank you. Gradually he then begins to learn in different situations different tones of voice that would be more appropriate to express these emotions. He begins to have different emotions because he begins to sense people around him better. He begins to sense what it means to ask something of this person, what it means to express gratitude, which it turns out for different people in different situations will be very different. He slowly gains a sense of the different ways tones of voices affect people differently because they have different ruts and patterns too, just like we do. And he learns to sense those and sense when to be more calm, when to be a little more laughing, when to be more smiling, when to be a little more grave. In other words, if he's learning the ritual, what he's doing, being forced to do at a young age and then doing as he grows up, is he is learning in this ritual space to train his dispositions, train his ability to see the world, train his ability to interact with those around him. And again, he can only do it from this perspective in that ritual space. It requires him to enter that ritual space, in this case, the dining room table that I sort of create as a ritual space by making these requests of him. And in that ritual space, he's not the normal Sammy that he was before. The normal Sammy was, he's a child, a wonderful child, but grabbing things, wants things, not sensing people around him. I'm training him in that as-if space to learn how to do this. Confucius would say, that's a ritual. A ritual, in other words, are not habits that we're forced to do over and over again. For Confucius, that's the danger, right? The danger is we become these habitual creatures who just do the same thing over and over again, so much that they become a part of us. Rituals force us for a brief moment to be a different person in a space where we are acting differently, interacting with those around us differently, and learning in that ritual space how to break our normal modes of being. For Confucius, a ritual, in other words, is not a habit. It's what breaks us from our habits and begins the possibility for us to become good. Now, if that's a rare example where we do something Confucius would appreciate and agree with, next, I would like to take you through one of his examples from his own day and use that to describe in more detail what he really means by this as-if world and what the implications for us as human beings would be if we truly learn to take rituals seriously. Thank you.